Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FDIP, the official podcast of the Faculty Development and Innovation Center at EIU. I'm Kim Ervin, Instructional Designer at EIU, and your host today. This podcast is to further promote teaching excellence through the sharing of information related to instructional design, teaching strategies, and innovation. In this episode, we will dive into an important topic that is not only timely for the beginning of a semester when there's a flurry of course prep happening, but also deadline sensitive and really just plain best practice. The topic I'm talking about is digital accessibility and the expected updated ADA Title II Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA regulations. Joining me today is Keerthana Saraswathula, EIU FDIC Instructional Support and Training Specialist, or ISTS for short, and an appreciated colleague of mine. For those of you who do not yet know you, Keerthana, could you share a little bit about what your role entails?
Thank you, Kim, for that wonderful introduction. My role as an instructional support and training specialist here at the FDIC, along with my other team members, involves providing guidance and training to faculty on various instructional technologies and best practices to enhance teaching and learning. My position is a little bit unique in which I focus on accessibility initiatives and efforts for faculty on campus. A significant part of my work currently is to support faculty in making their digital course content accessible and compliant with the emerging regulations, particularly the ADA Title II WCAG 2.1 AA standards. I offer one-on-one consultations, develop resources, and conduct workshops to help faculty integrate accessibility into their course design and delivery.
And hence why I had you, the expert on accessibility, come and speak with us today on this podcast. The reason that we're talking about this topic at the beginning of a semester is that there is a compliance deadline for implementing digital accessibility standards for public entities like EIU. The timeline depends on the size of the population the entity serves. There is a deadline of April 26th, 2026 for public entities serving populations of 50,000 plus, and an April 26th, 2027 deadline for those serving fewer than 50,000. Now, EIU falls into the category of serving a population of 50,000 plus, so our deadline is April 26th, 2026. What this means is that all of our digital course content, everything from D2L courses to online lectures, PDFs, videos, audio files, etc., needs to meet specific accessibility standards by April 26, 2026. And that's not very far away. This is a campus-wide effort with different teams taking a leading role in their areas. Like what I mean by that, for example, is the EIU web team is focusing on the EIU.edu webpages, while here at the FDIC, we're working with faculty to help guide them in making their course content meet the accessibility standards. And when I say we, I really mean Keerthana. And since we're coming to this conversation from a faculty perspective, we will be focusing specifically on what faculty need to know about making their D2L course and course content compliant. I've never been good in math, Keerthana, but my first question is, how does EIU fit into the category of serving a population of 50,000 plus, necessitating that earlier deadline of April 26th, 2026?
Yeah, that's a super common question, Kim. It's easy to think about just the student numbers, but the population of 50,000 plus actually refers to everyone a public entity serves. For a university like EIU, that goes way beyond just our current students. It includes prospective students, all of our faculty and staff, alumni, and even the wider community who interact with all of our digital resources and services.
That's a great explanation. So it's really about our reach, the numbers that we can potentially reach just from our websites alone. I can see that would meet that number easily. This is a good time to explain this long title, too, I feel like. When I introduced the topic, I rattled off the title, ADA Title II Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 level AA. And we discussed prior to our recording that there's really 3 components to that title. Could you just quickly break down those components?
Absolutely. So ADA Title II is a part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Think of it as the legal muscle behind it all. It basically says that public entities like EIU can't discriminate against people with disabilities. So our digital material really needs to be just as accessible as our physical campus. WCAG 2.1 stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and it's basically a rule book created by an international group called the World Wide Web Consortium. It gives us the specific technical standards for making web content accessible to everyone, including people with disabilities. The 2.1 just means that it's a newer version that includes more things that make content work better, for example, on mobile devices, and also addressing a wider range of disabilities. The last component, the AA, WCAG has different levels of conformance. So there's A, AA, and AAA. AA is like the gold standard in the industry. It means we are going beyond just the basics and really aiming for a comprehensive level of accessibility. It helps make sure our digital content works well for people with various cognitive, motor, auditory, and visual impairments.
And being in the field for a number of years now, I have also heard the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, pronounced WCAG, too, as well. I think getting down into the guidelines is kind of the meat of where our conversation is going to go. So can we do that now? Can we kind of dive into these Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 AA? What are they about?
Yeah, so the guidelines are built around 4 core principles. It's often remembered as the acronym POUR. P is for perceivable. This means providing alternative for non-text content, for example, image descriptions, which is alternative text, for visuals or captions for videos. So content can be presented in ways all students can perceive. O is for operable. This ensures all interactive elements and navigations, for example, buttons and links, work effectively for everyone, including those who only use a keyboard. U is for understandable. This involves using clear, concise language and ensuring predictable navigation, helping students easily find and comprehend information. And the final one is R for robust. This ensures your course materials are compatible with various tools, including assistive technologies, now and in the future.
I like that. So we're kind of talking about a high-level overview of the guidelines right now. These are going to be guidelines that pertain to content, the perception of our content, the operation of our content, the understandability of our content, and the robustness. Taking it down another notch, though, what do faculty need to do to make sure that their digital course content is compliant in these areas of perception, operation, understandability, and robustness?
Yeah, so to help faculty navigate through this, we've actually developed an approach based on 3 main pillars. Pillar 1 is build accessibility in from the start. So this pillar is all about being proactive instead of trying to fix accessibility issues after your course is built. We definitely encourage you to include it right in your course design from the very beginning. Trust us, it's much easier and more effective to build accessibility in from day one than to go back and make changes to it later. Pillar 2 is foster an inclusive classroom environment. So this pillar shifts our focus to the human element of accessibility. It's more about than just checking off technical boxes. It's about creating a classroom culture where every single student feels supported, valued, and able to learn. When we prioritize empathy and understanding, we truly cultivate an environment where all students can thrive. And the final pillar, Pillar 3, focuses on FDIC resources to help support faculty efforts. Please remember, you are absolutely not alone in this. So our third pillar highlights all the fantastic support systems and tools available right here at EIU through the FDIC. We have resources, trainings, and personalized help ready to assist you in every step of the way in making your courses accessible.
Diving in, I love the first one, build accessibility in from the start. Describe to us what are some specific things faculty can do within this first pillar when they're starting to create a piece of content so it meets accessibility and they don't have to come back and retrofit.
So this pillar is all about that built-in, not bolted-in idea. It truly is more efficient and effective to integrate accessibility from the get-go, like we talked about, rather than trying to fix each kind of document and remediate it after the fact. So for this pillar, we encourage you to use FDIC's checklists, guidelines, and timeline to give you a clear and actionable steps. For example, when you're creating Word documents, PowerPoints, or PDFs, making sure you're using proper formatting, headings, and adding alternative text for your images. For D2L content specifically, definitely try using the built-in accessibility checkers and follow our guidelines for creating accessible HTML pages. When it comes to multimedia like video or audio, make sure that you have clear instructions for adding captions or transcripts. We also really encourage faculty to explore the II WCAG 2.1 AA resources out there to understand why these standards are important, not just what they are. Look at practical examples to see how to fix common issues. And it's also very crucial to audit your own courses. That's whether you're using automated checkers or if you do a manual review. So this pillar is really all about utilizing EIU's resources from the very start.
Awesome. I picked up on a couple things there. As a listener, I'd be like, whoa, time out. What, a checklist? There's a checklist that I could access? So I took a look at the checklist before we recorded, and we'll provide a link to it in the show notes, of course. But it's basically a checklist that started in the spring of 25 semester, listed things that you should be doing, which really are just about analysis. And the reason that I want to stress that is because I don't want a listener to think that this checklist may not be able to apply to them because they've already missed one semester of activity. I remember looking at that checklist and thinking, I'm not too far behind. I can easily catch up. Then it's got a list of things to do this semester, fall of 2025, and then finally spring of 2026, which our deadline is at the end of that semester. So we will provide a link to that checklist, and even though we're one semester into that checklist, it's still very doable and very accomplishable. And then the other thing that you mentioned tools within Microsoft Office products like Word, PowerPoint. I think you're referencing that accessibility checker tool that's available in those applications. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And that is such a game changer. And you really don't even need to know where that tool is located in those applications, because if you just go up to the search bar at the top and type in accessibility checker, it'll take you right to where you need to go to turn it on. And then what it does is it opens a panel. For me, I'm Windows, so it opens a panel on the right side. And as you're creating the document, it will flag accessibility issues that need remediation. Super, super handy. And then also you mentioned in PDFs, and I know that we talk about this amongst our team. Adobe also has a accessibility checker.
It does, yes.
But there's a big but with it.
Yeah,
it's a report.
It is, yeah. It's a lot more complicated, which is, I think we're going to get into it a little later, but we definitely recommend, we call it our base programs, but really just making sure that your Word or PowerPoint, those apps, documents are remediated first before you go into PDF, because it does get really complicated. It is possible. It's just a lot of extra steps. It's not very customizable. We kind of talked about it earlier, but there is an option of going from PDF back to Word, and then making those changes and then going back to PDF. But again, it's a lot more time consuming, and it's probably more recommended to just make sure that that Word document that you have ready is as accessible as it can be.
Yeah, I always like to share those tips because I think they can be so helpful and save some frustration too. So let's move on to Pillar 2, which was about cultivating an inclusive classroom culture. What do faculty need to consider to accomplish this culture, which also in turn helps meet these guidelines?
This pillar really goes beyond just the technical stuff. It's about teaching itself and how we interact with our students. The emphasis on empathy and understanding as core parts of an accessible learning environment. First, it's crucial to understand that all students have diverse needs. This encourages faculty to think with a universal design for learning, or UDL mindset. That means recognizing that students have all sorts of learning styles, abilities, and ways they access information. Not just those with official disabilities. So this might mean offering content in different formats, like a written transcript for an audio lecture or a visual outline for a complex concept. It also involves providing flexible options for assessments and participation. The key here is acknowledging that a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching often leaves some students out. Secondly, practicing patience and empathy is absolutely essential for inclusive teaching. We encourage faculty to be open to student feedback about anything that's making it hard for them to access material. Respond thoughtfully to accommodation requests and try not to make assumptions about what students can or can't do. It's important to remember that digital accessibility is an ongoing process, and it's okay if you don't get everything perfect right away. And finally, understanding the why behind accessibility is probably the most important part of this pillar. Beyond just meeting that compliance deadline, the real value of accessibility is about fairness and opportunity. It's fundamentally about equity, making sure every student has an equal chance to success in their education. We also often see improved learning for everyone because accessible design principles actually benefit all students. For example, captions help students who are in noisy environments or those who simply prefer to read along. This ultimately, proactively removing these barriers prevents frustration, boosts engagement, and leads to a better learning outcome for every learner.
I really appreciate that you mentioned understanding the why, because as an instructional designer, that's one of my hooks that I really hang the ID hat on is a really important strategy, is to provide transparency behind all of your asks in the class. So again, understanding the why behind this is just as important as it is in having the students understand why behind all of your assignment asks. Finally, rounding out this 3-pillar plan is pillar number 3, which is the FDIC resources to support faculty efforts. Please describe what resources are available.
Yeah, this pillar is all about the support system we have in place, so faculty don't feel like they're tackling accessibility alone. For those complex or time-consuming documents, We offer remediation request forms. This can be found on the website, and we'll have the link below as well. Think of these as a critical safety net. We are here for the really tough stuff, though we do encourage you to try making fixes yourself first. But a truly empowering new tool we are excited to offer is called SensusAccess. This is a fantastic user-friendly website tool that lets you convert documents into all sorts of accessible formats like audiobooks, ebooks, and even digital braille. What's great about this SensusAccess is that it's a self-service tool. You can literally go to the website, create your own account, and start experimenting with it right away. You can upload a PDF, see what it looks like as an audio file or how it converts to a more readable ebook format. You can test it out with your own course materials before you decide how you want to integrate it into your class. This really gives you the power to handle many tasks independently and really see the benefits firsthand. Beyond SensusAccess, our FDIC online resources on our websites are a central hub packed with step-by-step guides, tutorials, and FAQs for creating accessible content in Word, PowerPoint, D2L, and all the EIU-supported technology. And speaking of online resources, we also established a dedicated digital accessibility SharePoint site. This site is designed to be your go-to place for all official EIU digital accessibility efforts, including our work to support faculty. It's a crucial communication mechanism and a great place to find additional guidance and updates. For personalized help, you can always schedule one-on-one consultations with me to discuss specific challenges and get hands-on support. We also offer weekly ISTS training workshops, especially focusing on bi-weekly sessions where you can learn practical skills like making PDFs accessible or captioning videos and get your questions answered. You can find the links to all these in the resources in our show notes. Finally, our FDIC monthly newsletter includes a dedicated accessibility section. This is a crucial part of our ongoing support, offering timely tips, highlighting new resources, and giving you essential reminders about your progress towards that April 26, 2026 compliance deadline. It's really just designed to help you stay informed and on track.
You had me at, you can find links to all these resources in our show notes. So the links that'll be there, the web page within our FDIC that you refer to as kind of the central hub, and then to our SharePoint site, we'll provide that link. And then the other takeaway from what you just described, Keerthana, is SensusAccess. Because I think, would you agree with me that this podcast might be the first time that some of our listeners are even learning about this. And so to paraphrase that is an application. It's like an accessibility checker application that we're paying for our faculty and staff to have access to. Let's clarify access. Is that faculty can access this?
Yes, so they can create their own individual accounts and they can put in their documents, and then in just a few minutes, it will actually send to their email that they input.
Wonderful. Yeah. That is great. So it's called SensusAccess.
Yeah, and I think we can put the link in the show notes for that as well.
Okay, awesome. That's great. I feel like we're making a big announcement, don't you? SensusAccess is available. That's awesome. Keerthana, you have provided a lot of information in regards to each one of these three pillars, and it's a lot of information to think about. Can you just address, where does a faculty member start? Like if they haven't already, where's a good place for them to start with all of this?
Of course. So starting your digital accessibility journey doesn't have to feel very overwhelming. A fantastic first step is simply to commit to making all new course materials accessible from this point onwards. Think about your new lecture slides, handouts, and D2L pages. Just build accessibility from the start, as we talked about in our Pillar 1. Beyond new content, consider the big hits in your existing courses. Think about what do your students use the most often, for example, your syllabus, perhaps, or those frequently assigned readings. Making these highly visible items accessible will give you the greatest immediate impact. You can also pick just one accessibility skill to master at a time. Maybe it's consistently adding alternative text to your images, or perhaps using meaningful link text instead of just using click here. Don't forget to use the built-in accessibility checkers in tools like Microsoft Office and D2L. And always check if the FDIC offers accessibility templates that you can use to finish these tasks. We are continuously working on this type of material. We always try and see what kind of documents the faculty need, and we're always adding to this library or these resources as we find out faculty are having difficulty in different tasks. Beyond the technical stuff, remember to cultivate an inclusive classroom by including a personal accessibility statement on your syllabus and simply just being mindful of how you are sharing information. Finally, and this is a big one, immediately utilizing the EIU's resources. So bookmarking our FDIC accessibility page, attending a workshop to build foundational skills, schedule a one-on-one consultation for personalized guidance, or even submitting a remediation request for any particular challenging files you're stuck on. For ongoing support, our university newsletter will continue to publish accessibility sections. As we talked about, these sections are a vital communication channel, providing timely tips and tricks, highlighting new resources, and giving you reminders on where you should be on the timeline towards that April 26, 2026 compliance deadline. These regular nudges are designed to really help you stay on track, making sure this important imperative is integrated into your ongoing course management rather than becoming a last-minute scramble. By breaking down the process into these manageable actions and staying informed through FDIC's communications, you can confidently and progressively build an increasingly accessible and inclusive learning environment.
Thank you so much. It just reminds me of that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And you just described the first few bites of eating this elephant, this accessibility elephant. So thank you so much. Keerthana, this has been incredibly informative, especially as faculty prepare for a new semester. Thank you so much for joining us, explaining the compliance, and just really breaking it down into very manageable steps and parts.
Thank you, Kim, for inviting me to be part of this important conversation. I think it's incredibly important to get this message out to our faculty. It truly means a lot to me to be able to share these insights, as I really believe that by working together, we can create a more welcoming and effective learning environment for every student at EIU. I truly appreciate the opportunity to help our faculty make that difference.
Well, your expertise in this topic undoubtedly helps faculty feel more confident about tackling digital accessibility. And most importantly, faculty should remember that they are not alone in this process. Keerthana is here at EIU in the FDIC to support faculty every step of the way with resources, training sessions, and one-on-one consultations. If you have any questions about anything we discussed today, or if you would like to schedule a consultation about making your course content more accessible, you can reach out to Keerthana directly. We'll provide her phone number, her email in the show notes. You can also directly message her on Teams. When we design with inclusivity and accessibility in mind from the start, we create better learning experiences for all of our learners. As always, thank you for listening and continuing to learn.